Risk! Ha! What's it good for? Well, let me try and answer that question. See, if the only games you've ever played are Scrabble, Cluedo, or Monopoly, I would like to pitch you on something. I would like you to try Risk. Now, don't be put off by the fact that it's a war game, has lots of rollings of dices. This game is fun, this game is great, this game is awesome! And it's a gateway to a larger world of games. But first, let's set up. What do I mean by larger world? Well, in my opinion, Monopoly and Co don't lead people through to a larger world of the hobby. See, when having guests over, I think it's better to sit around a table and play a board game, laughing, talking, begging, threatening, rather than sitting in silence for 2 hours watching a movie, no matter how great that latest Harry Potter movie is. See, I think it's better to have a table full of bowls of chips, lollies and drinks while we laugh at the misfortune of the player that always loses, while you try and convince the table that you're not quite doing as well as that they might think you are, like a toddler trying to convince everyone that doesn't have anything behind its back. So let's dive in and look at how you play Risk, my recommendations for how you should play Risk with new and seasoned players alike. Risk is a game for 2 to 6 players, but really 3 to 6, and plays best with at least 4 or more. Depending on the version you have, you'll be told to roll a dice, with the highest going first, and told to claim territories on the board, these boarded off zones here. Now I'm here to tell you that method is bull crap. What will happen is players will claim mostly one zone, with a few claims put in there to block people from starting with a whole zone at the start of the game, and you'll end up with this type of Cold War situation where everyone's coalesced into one zone of the board. Now don't get me wrong, that part of the game is really fun, but you miss out on all the randomness of startup, with people being forced into unexpected locations due to unforeseen circumstances. So what should you do? Well, you take the deck of cards, which has a card for each territory on the board, and you shuffle them and you deal them to the players. Then from their starting pool of armies, 30 in a 4-player game, which is what I've got set up here. Don't worry, I've got some real friends. And then you have them place 1 on each of the territories that were shown on the cards that were dealt to them. This is what I have in front of me here, and as you can see, it's akin to someone vomiting up Fruit Loops with the colours all over the place. This is exactly the crazy start you want. So why do you want a crazy start? Well, players will be forced to think about where to consolidate their forces, the first really hard decisions of the game. You'll watch players climb over each other as they realise they both want the same area of the board. And it's just funny to watch a player that has a horrible spread try and figure out what he's going to do that game as he's left to wander Asia for a few turns. But before we go any further, let's explain a few elements of the game. A standard Risk board is broken up into 42 territories, such as North Africa or Egypt, Middle East or even Eastern United States. Now each territory cannot be left empty, which means at least one army must be left behind in each territory. Now the eagle-eyed of you may have noticed that there are different colours across the board. Now each one of these is a region. If you control every single territory in a whole colour group or region at the start of your turn, then you gain extra armies in your supply. For example, North America in yellow is all one region. If you control all 9 territories that make it up, you'll get an extra 5 armies at the start of your turn. Note the border wraps around here, meaning you've got 3 borders to defend. 1, 2, and 3. Meaning it takes a good number of troops to conquer and control this region. Australia, for example, just has 1 border and 4 territories, but only offers a bonus army count of 2 if you hold it. Now let's look at the armies. Some versions of Risk will come with cubes or Roman numerals, and I'm here to say, fire truck that cupcake. You want a version that comes with these 3. An infantry, he's worth 1 army. A cavalry, or a horsey, to be worried about, he's worth 5 armies. And an artillery, or an F-off cannon as I like to call them, he's worth 10 armies. Now one of these babies at your border will give you pause for concern. Lots of questions to the player's intentions like, you're not going to attack me, are you? And they'll be, no, I'm just showing up my borders. But are they? Now the cannon and horsey are functionally identical. They don't attack any differently than the infantry. They're just a way of keeping count of larger numbers of armies, and can be substituted between each other at any time for no cost. Next here we have the secret sauce you want in all of your games, and they're called the secret mission cards. Now at the start of the game, once everyone's been assigned their random mix of territories, you take this deck, shuffle it, and give every player exactly 1 card. Now this 1 card effectively becomes their win condition. Whenever they meet the criteria of whatever's on the card, they win immediately and the game stops. But everyone's mission is different, and no one knows what the other player needs to finish the game on them before they have time for their plans to come together. Missions you'll see are kill all of one colour, like green here, known in my risk group as the Kill Tim rule, or 24 territories of your choice, over half the board, or conquer North America and Africa, meaning to win you'll need to hold all of these two regions at the same time without anyone catching on. That is what you're after. Secret missions are the bomb, and they add a layer of unknown to the game. They force players to go to areas that they wouldn't normally go for, and this is far better than waiting for someone to sweep the board in world domination. And secret missions end sooner, so they mean for a funner, shorter game. So you shuffled and dealt out all the territory cards. Everyone's placed one army for every territory that they got. You've dealt them out a secret mission card for me, Asia and Africa. Now, you just need to figure out where to put the rest of your starting pool of armies. Noting they have to go on territories that you already control, and you put them out two at a time around the table, so everyone has a chance to respond to your growing number of troops. So this is my starting position. I need all of Asia and all of Africa to win the game. I've only got the one troop here in Africa, but I've got a great cluster of troops here in Australia. So what do? Do I slowly load my troops into Australia and try and build a stronghold from which I push out onto the map, taking Asia, taking Africa slowly? Or do I just get all my troops and just dump them all into the one location in Africa and try and burst out from that location? Or do I do a little bit of both, some in Australia, some in Africa, and hedge my bets? And what happens if my opponent dumps all of their troops to fight me for Australia? Or there's a fight with other opponents as they all try and push through Africa to get their missions? This is the challenge of risk. Stay with me, we're almost there. At the start of your second turn, and every turn thereafter, you get 3 troops to add to the board. More if you control more territories, or you control a whole region. You also collect cards. As long as you take at least one territory on your turn, you'll pick up cards. These cards will have infantry, horses, or cannons on them. And if you manage to collect one of each at the start of your turn, you can trade them in and get 10 troops to add to the board. 10! Lastly, how do we fight? Well, this is the simple, elegant system that sits over the game. Attackers get 3 dices, defenders get 2, assuming you have enough troops to either attack or defend with, and the highest pairs win, with defenders winning ties. For example, I've rolled a 6-3-2 here for the attackers. Defenders have rolled 5-5. In this case, the 6 beats the 5, but the defender's second 5 beats the 3, and the 2 is excluded because it's the lowest number. So in this situation, each side would lose 1 each. The odds of winning are about 50-50, as long as all 5 dices are used. And as long as you've got more than one army in a territory, you can keep attacking. With good luck seeing you smash open a defender and take everything that is his, and with bad luck seeing you throw 15 troops away like a cup of water on a castle wall, leaving yourself open to a painful counter-attack that hurts more than the original loss. So what does an attack run look like? Well, I've just cashed in 3 cards here and dumped 10 troops in the bottom of South America. I've got all 3 of my opponents present here in the same continent. First roll goes well, red loses 2. Second roll, not so well, I lose 2. Third roll, we lose 1 each. And then finally I finish off red with them losing 2. I push forward, taking all my troops but leaving 1 behind. Blue I get on the first roll, so he's gone, and I move forward again. Lastly I attack yellow. I lose 2 on the first roll, 2 on the second roll. At this point I'm thinking maybe I should stop, but then I go for 1 more roll, yellow loses 2, then I finish them off on the next roll, moving across and taking all of the continent in one go. This is a blitz. So you know how to reinforce, you know how to attack, and you have a goal. This is the puzzle. How do you get from point A to point B? What places do you attack? How many rolls do you have before giving up? And how do you defend yourself after you finish attacking? Now, you're playing Risk. With the rules explanation out of the way, it's time for some criticism, or at least some things you should be aware of going into a game of Risk. Risk is a long game and can run for 2 to 3 hours with the right group, or can run as long as 5 hours should you get into a Cold War type situation. Sometimes it can be a while between turns, especially if 2 players with large armies face off against each other. But with the right atmosphere and chat, it's a social game, with you trying to talk players into not attacking you, or talk them into attacking other players that might help you, and with the whole table reveling in the success and failures of other players. But you need to be prepared for long periods of time where it seems hopeless, where you're on the other side of the board with no way of winning. You've got to be prepared to bide your time and slow play for a victory, with a dash at the end. So my recommendation for new and seasoned players alike is to use a random setup, secret mission, and the optional fortifying your position rule. This gives the best mix of games in my experience. Now for new players, treat the first game as a trial, as they're not going to have the tools on how to hold their position very well or how to blitz for the win at the end. So be a good host, don't smash them, otherwise you might not get a second game with them. So that's it. If your board game experience up to this point in time has only been Monopoly, listen to a man on the internet who likes way too many types of chips and board games. Get some friends, get together and play Risk. But if buying a game is too much of a risk for you, then get some friends to chip in $5 or $10 each so you can all try it together. Now, for those of you who've been yelling at the screen and have got this far, and you're saying, well, Risk belongs in the same category as Monopoly, Scrabble, or Game of Life, because they have countless versions that are everywhere. I say, hear me out. Monopoly and Game of Life are just roll and move games, giving you no control over your destiny. Scrabble is great if you can spell, but it's bad with a mixed skill group. Risk allows you to be as complex or as no stress as you want. Plan and scheme and strategize as many moves ahead as you can, or just have a sneaky roll at that one territory and get a card with the turn, or go for broke and push for the win. Try and claim all of one region, and then see if you can border up and hold it and become stronger. Or close up shop and defend and let other players break against you. All these strategies are viable, and I would argue they're not present in the aforementioned games. Risk can be your first foray into this, being in charge of your destiny. While a few good or bad rolls can win or screw you, the plan is in your hand. Only you are to blame for the choices you have made, unlike games where the only choice is to roll and move the allocated spaces. Risk is so much more than a board game. It's the shared laughter of someone declaring an attack and losing it all, or someone just having a few sneaky rolls with a handful of troops and blowing the game wide open. It's the joy at the end of the game of finally being able to share your mission and all laughing at how far or close everyone was from winning. It's much more than who wins when you play board games. It's a step into the hobby. And if you can be persuaded into giving up some of that screen time, give Risk a go. And then you'll find out there's a whole world of possibility of games to be had. Risk is great. Sitting around the table with people you want to spend time with is also great. So give Risk a go. And remember, chips go with everything.